What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel today for a special interview. As you see, I'm not alone, as I am sitting virtually next to the very talented director, Brad Furman, director of one of many things, but the director of this film, City of Lies, which is now available in theaters as of March 19th. And guess what, folks? If you're not comfortable with going to the theaters just yet, well, it is coming on digital on demand April 9th. Brad, how are you doing today?
Good, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
This is going to be a very interesting interview. I just want to put more emphasis on this for people. Now, if you don't know what City of Lies is, I guarantee you have seen the trailer, and it went by the wayside for a little bit, but it is about to release. If you're not going to the theaters, it is going to drop on digital on demand for you. But once we start talking about what this film is about, not major spoilers, but just enough context, you're going to be like, oh, I remember that. And the reason why that's important is because, Brad, I have got to start off by asking, how does it feel to get to this point? It's been a crazy long road right now for this.
I don't, for me personally, it should feel amazing. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it's a little bit surreal.
Yeah.
It's a little bit, it's hard to imagine, but I keep coming full circle to this notion, especially in talking to people who have asked that question. The movie is so much bigger than me. The story is so much bigger than me. I'm just a conduit to getting the messaging and the story, which I feel is deeply important, out into the world. Yeah. So for me, that's where my head and heart is at. And that's what I feel is really important.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things I want to make sure I throw at you. Like, number one, you and your film essentially brought back life to the box office. Could you ever imagine that?
No, when I was fighting like a crazy person for years now to get the movie released, and then COVID happened, and again, this happened to everybody, the unimaginable. Yeah. When they finally decided to release the film, I didn't actually think theaters would reopen at the same time. So that was very fortuitous in that regard. And I hope people feel safe enough to go out, because it is a theatrical experience if you can get to see it that way.
Absolutely agree. And, folks, don't be fearful. The theater companies are really doing their best to accommodate and get people back into it. So I will definitely suggest, as he said, this is one you want to check out in the theater. It's an experience. As much as it is a movie, it's an experience. You're going to get a ton of knowledge. You're going to get a ton of good music. And overall, you're just going to get an amazing film with really tremendous actors all involved. Brad, and the next question I want to get into, ask you before we get into this is that, as you are a filmmaker who wear all of the hats, actually, would you say that this is, in regards to distribution, would you say this is one of the biggest challenges a filmmaker could actually go through, almost like a maze looking for a release date? Because I just, like, as a fan and reading the information about this, I was like, wow, it takes a strong person to not be very, very down in their luck, saying yay, no, and then finally here we are.
I think to pursue this career in particular, you have to be resilient. You have to understand and not take the no's personal. You have to have a deep faith in yourself, and you have to have that vision and keep pushing forward. These are, and the circumstances of which unfolded on this film are unimaginable. Very fitting, considering everything that was swept under the rug and hidden and pushed back with respect to the truth and the facts of the case, and how, that stuff was suppressed. In the same way, I guess it shouldn't surprise me that the movie was suppressed. So in that regard, it makes sense. But no, I wouldn't wish this on any filmmaker. No, I don't. But worse than that, I mean, the Poole family and Russ's wife and children, the hope and belief and enthusiasm they had to honor their father and get his story out into the world. Miss Wallace's fight for justice, and Wayne Barrow, Biggie's former manager, all of these people who were intricately involved in the film had expectations, and to not have them met and to not have that be in my control was heartbreaking. So I took on that burden of responsibility, and I never quit. And it is surreal that it's actually happening now. If something else happened that all of a sudden stopped it, nothing would surprise me. So.
Yeah. I literally have in my notes in bold letters the amount of trust that was instilled in you into getting this done in every aspect here. The story, the cast, the filmmaking process, everything. And I definitely want to start off with talking about the Poole family. Now, I've heard stories about Russell Poole, who's played by Johnny Depp, which we'll come back to in a second. But I never looked at it in the way that this movie presented it. And essentially, he was seemed to be the only bright light in so much of the corruption in the Los Angeles Police Department. Was that always the case into essentially displaying him as a hero in this? Showing that there was some good, because, let the fans and all the conspiracy theorists let it be. The whole city, everybody was corrupt. Not one good person. But I don't feel that way anymore by watching this. And I'm wondering, was that always the goal to black, upon you, doing your research and whatnot, realizing like, oh, there was something really good. And not only did he do good, because he wasn't just a good person, you displayed him as a hero, the one shining light of all of this and getting this done. So I'll start with that first. Like, was that always the method to make sure that he got the proper representation and essentially the accolade that he deserved in all of this?
It's very hard in life to go against the grain and to fight against a larger system. Russ believed in, as we try to, make clear in the movie, Russ believed in what the uniform stood for. He believed in the code of the force and the responsibility to uphold that code. And as a result of that, when he found that there were quote unquote bad elements in the department, he felt a deep responsibility to shed light on that. Unfortunately, at that point, you're going against the grain. It's like playing at the craps table and betting against the table. If you bet against the table on the no pass line, everybody hates you. So that is who he became. He became this pariah who, from the outside looking in from these people, wasn't willing to play ball. But the truth is, he was just trying to do the right thing. So at what point are you a pariah when you're trying to do the right thing and tell the truth and lay out the facts and be a good human being? I think that's where it's easier to, be on the wrong side of things and just fit in with everyone than it is to be on the outside and speak your voice. And Russ felt a deep responsibility, I think, to himself, to his family, surely to the Wallace family, and what he had uncovered. And he was on this lifelong commitment to the fight for justice and truth. And as a result, he was ostracized. To this day, his family does not collect any of the pension or money related to his many years he toiled in the Los Angeles Police Department. So he and his family suffered at the hands of him just wanting to be an honorable guy.
And I was literally just going to ask, upon taking this responsibility, what conversations and what more information did you learn from Megan and Kurt Poole in regards to getting this done? That right there. That's shocking. That's shocking, but almost unshocking to hear that. But that's wow.
I felt a responsibility to reinvestigate the case, our own version of an investigation. We worked hand in hand with Sergio Robledo. Sergio was the lead supervisor for Russ Poole during his tenure, a large part of his tenure at the LAPD. He was also the lead investigator for the Wallace civil case, working for Perry Sanders, the attorney for the Wallace civil case against the Los Angeles Police Department and the city. The keys to the kingdom were given to me with redacted files, you actually see in the movie, depositions that were never publicly released. In that reinvestigation, not only did we find out new information and new facts, but it also led us to Phil Carson, who was the lead FBI agent looking into the case for many years, who had all these facts that implicated the Los Angeles Police Department, and subsequently spawned, Randall Sullivan's book, Dead Wrong, which is the sequel to the Labyrinth book. So there's a lot of information out in the world today, and hopefully it'll really bring to light the truth and justice way beyond even what we were able to put in the movie. And that was a result of the work we were doing, not purposefully. It just started to come together. So
So again, we talking about the Poole family. Mrs. Wallace is who's been very adamant, and rightfully so about things she wants to be attached to. And not only did you get her graces, you got a presence in this. Now, how in the world did you make that happen?
When I met Miss Wallace on a phone call, I cold called her, and we built this friendship and trust over the phone. And I had asked her pretty early on, would she be willing to play herself in the film? And she laughed in my face, truly. And I love her to death. She was like, "Oh, go hire Angela Bassett. She's done it before." You don't need me. I'm not an actress. But I explained to her on my trip to New York to sit with her and Wayne Barrow. I know it's humorous. I said I really felt this deep responsibility to humanize Christopher in the movie, and to not make a film that exploited the death of a young black man, to not make a movie that exploited Christopher. That's not why I was here. That I was unwilling to make the movie without the support of her, the Wallace estate, the Shakur estate. And not only that, it was just crucially important to humanize Pac and Biggie, because the truth of the matter is they reach such an iconic status. It's so easy for us to like forget that they're human.
Yeah.
To forget that Big was a father of children and a son to a mother and all of these things. So I felt this responsibility, and that's why having Miss Wallace in the film was so significant and so important.
Yeah. I was so emotional seeing her on the screen. And you know, that's one of the big things that I wanted to bring to my review, is that, you know, when you're talking about the Biggie Tupac and a story with all the conspiracies and whatnot, at this point right now, you know, this was, you know, could have been released last year or 19, you know, it's been in the works for a few years. It's always a question up until this point, what can you tell us new? And beyond new information that I learned, and beyond the stuff I had already knew, nothing seals and nothing is considered icing on a cake without the stamp of authenticity with her being in this. And you already know if the mom's in it, you have to take it for what it is. There's no questioning conspiracy, nothing. This is a story here now. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not just some make-believe anything. Once his mother touches it, this is the story. And like that, as much as you say it's important for you, for viewers seeing that, I was like, oh, okay, then. Yeah, and it makes you grasp the knowledge just an entirely different way. Also, I got to give you kudos too. Speaking for, you know, the purpose of the movie, you're also, like you said, you're telling a big story about society as well. And I was getting that as well. And in that point, I didn't want to make it personal, but I'm glad that he said that. But like, you're talking about making two African-American males be human, in a sense that they were never treated that way because they were either larger than life and just super icons and you forget they were human, or because they were African-Americans and they were never considered to be humans in the first place. So to do that makes it so much more relatable, that you think like, with one trick of luck, I could have been this person, and one trick of bad luck, I could have been this person. And it's just a really passionate story looking at it that way. That's why I connected with this movie in a crazy way that I was like, wow.
I appreciate it. You know, the influence that my black friends and black culture had on me as a young man is, you know, I can't really define that for you. The influence in particular that Big and Pac had on me was undefinable. And as a result of that, I can only imagine, and obviously do imagine, the impact that they've had on not only many other individuals, but the world. So when you look at the responsibility of that as well, I felt that that's why there was no one in the making of the movie that was actually going to replicate Big. There was no one who was going to replicate Pac. That's why in the middle of the movie, you know, we take a moment of silence for Pac. You know, that's why I tried to embed Biggie's vocals in all different ways to really humanize him. You know, right before the tragic end that he comes to, we took a real conversation that he had and we embedded it into the car. So that's his real voice. You know, we tried to capture him visually in a way that created the imagery and feeling and impression of him that hopefully was powerful. We used Valletta's voice and the story of the clock of time and time running out for him over his, you know, walk to the car and beyond. So there was a lot of effort to really try our best to evoke what we're discussing here and to honor the impact that they had as individuals, the impact they had on culture, and the culture, and the world. And for me, these things weren't just important. The gravity was, undefinable. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, before I even ask my last question, I just want to say thank you for that because, my first question, dealt with in regards to the trust and responsibility, and for that, I'm definitely saying, thank you because I feel like you handled this exactly how it should have been done, and even probably exceed expectations for telling a good story, bringing light to bringing light back to the story, and again the cultural representation and purpose that this film does. It's going to do well. A lot of people are going to connect with it, and it's just a fantastic film, and it's just another one of the many good projects that you've done. So when I knew you were attached to this, I was like, oh, this is going to be good. For sure. You
I
did a hell of
appreciate
a job, man.
Thank you, man. I really do appreciate it. And, it's an honor and a pleasure to sit here with you today. It's an honor and pleasure to bring the movie to the world. But as I've been saying, the movie's just so much bigger than me. This was a
Yeah.
story that needed to be told. There's messages and themes in this movie that are just as relevant as before, as now today. We're
Yeah.
fighting for social justice and change and all of these things that matter. And, who better to be in the conversation as a Black man who lost his life at the hands of the police than Christopher Wallace. And, I just felt that maybe, just maybe, this can get people to look at themselves and ask the
Yeah.
right questions, look in
Yeah.
the mirror and ask the right questions. And hopefully individually and then collectively, we'll be able to, maybe just try to slowly and assuredly create some change.
Yep. Absolutely agree. Now, my last question, I would, first of all, I just want to make sure everybody know, because no people that's watching this is probably thinking about the cast. Yeah, Johnny Depp and Forest Whitaker are in there, and although they're very adequate parts to this, I always thought it was much, much deeper, as you said, to talk about the story and how big the story is, and ramifications to everything else. So I just want to ask you, from everything that you've done in getting this project done, how did you balance your life out, considering the different avenues you had to go to seek information, the vast amount of responsibility that you had to take on, the many challenges into getting this release? What did you do to sort of keep your mental health focused and keep yourself balanced through all of this? Because I just couldn't even imagine at sometimes how this could just probably, and again, you said it's bigger than yourself, but that's still a big responsibility on your back. And the only way that the car's going to drive is if you're behind the wheel.
Yeah, I'll answer it in two parts. First and foremost, with having these huge heavyweights of a Depp and Whitaker in the movie, it was a very conscious choice to use them as the Trojan horse to carry the messaging. I felt that we're going to get more eyeballs on the movie with these two classic
Yeah.
greats, and we're going to get these deep, sophisticated performances, which are a requirement in my job in the storytelling. Secondarily, you're right. I bit off probably more than I could chew. I've been doing that for a long while. The pressure and the subconscious nature of how these things affect me. But you fight for what you believe in, and in the same breath, you try to take care of yourself. So I, in just a personal way, always try to stay active. Try to physically work out every day. Try to run to keep my mind relaxed and calm. Was always trying to play basketball when there was a moment, because that was
Yeah.
really a way for me to disappear, lose myself, and connect with others. Obviously, COVID changed that, but yeah, I do think you give so much to these films. It's a really it's an excellent question, from the sense of, like, you're giving a bit of a pound of flesh, figuratively and literally, to these films, and you lose something, but in the end you gain something. I remember it. I know this is a weird thing, but I volunteered when I was very young for these physically and mentally challenged kids, and you think that you're giving, but ironically, in connecting with all these kids, I was taking much more
Yeah.
than I was ever giving. And I learned so much from those particular kids, and one young man in particular that I connected with when I was about 17. So I think this is one of those sort of transactions. I did give. I gave everything and more to the film, but I'm sure what I got is probably much greater. But in the end, and I did say it, I just hope that the messaging and the story connects with people in a way, like yourself, that is meaningful enough that we hold our systems and institutions accountable, and not allow things like this to go unnoticed or swept under the rug. It's insane to me, and I had said this before, in different interviews. I thought Michael Bennett put everything in perspective when Tom Brady's jersey a few years ago went missing after the Super Bowl and it was stolen, and the government put all their agencies together, and within 48 hours, Brady's jersey was found. And ultimately, you know, Bennett was like, well, wait, we can find Tom Brady's jersey within 48 hours, but 20 years later, you know, because the jersey was in Mexico, 20 years later, we can't solve the murders of Biggie and Pac. And they don't want the murders to be solved. And those are for the failures of the institutions and these larger reasons. So, you know, you get it. And, you know, this speaks to larger things than just these two young men who lost their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, well, I know I'll be taking a lot of good sound bites out of this because this is very inspirational, but yet it's so true.
Yeah, it's really true. Here, I'll leave you with this quote. I don't know if this will be valuable, but this is sort of how I saw it. It's a Quincy Jones quote. It says, "The tragedy of Tupac is that his untimely passing is representative of too many young black men in this country. If we had lost Oprah Winfrey at 25, we would have lost a relatively unknown local market TV anchorwoman. If we had lost Malcolm X at 25, we would have lost a hustler named Detroit Red. And if I had left the world, i.e. Quincy Jones, at 25, we would have lost a big band trumpet player and aspiring composer, just a sliver of my eventual life potential." And both Biggie and Pac were lost at that age. And, you know, who knows what their lives would have become, but there's so many other black men and women whose lives have been lost as well. And, you know, this is something that, you know, obviously we're attempting to deal with in a very large fashion.
Yep. Well, Brad, again, thank you so much, you know, for speaking with me today, and obviously the hard work on getting this project done and released. Folks, it is available in theaters as of March 19th, and then will be available on demand and digitally April 9th. This is City of Lies. Keep an eye out for Brad. I see he got a few other projects queuing out. We won't talk about that now because we're right up on time. But I definitely, again, I appreciate your time. We're talking about this. Folks, definitely give a follow to his social media. That way, he can keep up with everything he has going on. And definitely, you know, for all his hard work, definitely go out and support it. Not just because of him, as he said, this is way, way bigger than him. And even the story, this is about society we're talking about here. And this message and the story, the message of this story is hopefully just to spark a conversation amongst people. And that's all we need to do if we're going to move in the right direction. So as always, folks, thank you so much for tuning in, Brad. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Right on. And we'll catch you all soon. Thank you so much.